Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Trust 2018 is going well. Before we know it, we'll be at Christmas time again, I'm sure. Home thoughts. This is somewhere near the beach, the Diani beach in Mombasa. I took that on the 29th of December. And whilst I was down there, I came across the library and read Lawrence van der Post for the first time. Very interesting individual. Human beings are perhaps never more frightening than when they are convinced beyond doubt they are right. As the natural coherence of the world vanishes, there's a guilt that grows great and angry in the basement of our beings. Something Mr. Trump tapped into. A journey into the unknown in the world without produces of movement towards new and unknown areas in our world within. This is a photograph of Dwight York and Andy Cole. I'm a Manchester United supporter, and they were the strikers in my day. And Andy was a good friend of somebody who lived upstairs, and I got to know him quite well. Political reflections. Theresa May takes the unusual step of posing for a picture mid-reshuffle. The fact she's still in office, said Beach, you could say that's an achievement after so many people wrote her off. You could look at it that way. Egypt will set the date for an election that has only one contender, President el-Sisi. The other contender was unceremoniously dispatched back to Cairo. Je suis venu vous le dire. L'Europe est de retour. That's Emmanuel Macron. Which is, I wish to tell you that Europe is back. Indeed it is. You see that in the Eurozone. Economic confidence has hit its highest level since 2000. We've had a bit of a drawdown in the euro, but I think it's been more about the yen. And therefore, this is a great opportunity to load the boat. Economic confidence across the Eurozone has hit its strongest level in more than 17 years, according to official figures that suggest both consumers and businesses are benefiting from the region's healthy recent performance. The European Commission's headline economic sentiment indicator advanced from the previous month's 114.8 to 116 in December, its strongest level since October 2000. The jump was larger than economists had forecast and reflected improvements among businesses in every sector. 4th of December, after a visit to Paris, I wrote, Emmanuel Macron has given France back its mojo. North and South Korea began first talks in more than 2 years to decide whether athletes from the North will participate in next month's Winter Olympics in South Korea. The talks, which began on Tuesday morning, just south of the border separating the two countries, represent a cautious diplomatic breakthrough after months of rising tensions over Pyongyang's nuclear weapons program. What is interesting here is clearly that South Korea have sought to put some daylight between themselves and Donald Trump's tweets. And the interesting part is whether the North and the South can triangulate Donald Trump in this matter. DPRK News, which is a parody account, tweeted Supreme Leader Kim Jong-Un said to be the most consensual of all world leaders. There is one clear winner from Donald Trump's tweet tantrums this week about Pakistan, China, which suddenly finds its leverage over Pakistan multiplying. That's the Hindu. And this point is, obviously China's made this enormous investment in the Gwalia port, and that's all about breaking the stranglehold that could be imposed on the South China Sea. But my point is that, China has India surrounded, and in part via Pakistan, and that this was an ill-advised move, I think, by President Trump. to wade into this regard. And there is some sort of conspiracy theorists that the Americans were demanding access at the border into Iran in order to put more pressure on the Iranian regime, and that was rejected by the Pakistanis, which might well be true. That was why there was this very robust tweet storm. Dollar yen, now that's had a big move. We've come down from around, was high as 113.30. We're now at 112.76. We came as low as 112.50. And this was on the news. That must have been telegraphed the day before, because the move started happening ahead of the news that the Bank of Japan is trimming purchases of long-end bonds by 10 billion yen each in the 10 to 25 year segment and the more than 25 years zone. So they're going to allow the curve to steepen a little bit. And it was that announcement that sparked the move down to 112.50. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart. That had a bit of a recovery yesterday, a stronger session all round, but I'm not bullish about it. I think you continue to sell dollar rebounds. Hedge funds and other speculators kick off 2018 with their biggest net long euro position on record. This is from Jamie, who's at Reuters. And I think it was that really led to that news that led to a bit of a profit-taking bout in the euro dollar, but I expect us to base out and then move back higher. I'll put up a 3-month chart. It's defensive for now. Last trading 119.68. We've come down to 119.50. There is a double top at 120.80, but I think we're going to take that out in due course. And my target remains 124. Bitcoin tumbled back below 15,000. Quite a big move. Yes, we're still below that level. I said on the 2nd of January, I am no longer bullish Bitcoin. In fact, I'm bearish. Last year I made Bitcoin my number one choice, and it rallied close to 20-fold before correcting and ending the year up 13-fold. I am no longer bullish Bitcoin. In fact, I'm bearish. One of the reasons I'm bearish is anecdotal. I have a friend who has quite a large business who was being shaken down that's in Nairobi, and he was being asked to make payments in Bitcoin. And I think, if it's got as far as here to that degree, it's pretty frightening. The structure of Bitcoin is, however, one that lends itself to being short squeezed. And being short squeezed is not a pleasant sensation, let me assure you. And I've been short squeezed badly, in Japan actually. For 2018, the portfolio will look to be short Bitcoin on a tactical basis. Against that Bitcoin short, I will hold a small long in Ripple, which is another cryptocurrency, which looks like it might become a serious payments platform. However, Ripple yesterday looked like a classic flash crash, tumbled quite sharply before rebounding, and we're last trading at 235. And here's another chart from Rafi. He's saying that we now need a clear break of 285 to resume the bullish trend. My piece over the weekend was all about the crypto avocado millennial economy. I was saying the zeitgeist of a time is its defining spirit or its mood. Capturing the zeitgeist of the now is not an easy thing, because we're living in a dizzyingly fluid moment. Whether it's President Trump's rat-a-tat tweets or a mind-boggling 625% share price advance, because an erstwhile tea company, the Long Island Iced Tea Corporation, was a little-known company making non-alcoholic lemonades and iced teas, renamed itself the Long Blockchain Corporation, and ran up 625% higher before correcting back. We are living in extraordinarily fast-moving times, and that goes back to Paul Virilio, who says wealth is the hidden side of speed, and speed is the hidden side of wealth. And I was talking about the avocado prices, and then I was talking about cryptocurrency, and I said the most extreme example of this virus-style millennial behavior has been witnessed in the cryptocurrency markets. The total market cap of all cryptocurrencies has crossed $800 billion, and given the velocity of the move could cross $1 trillion in the blink of an eye. Bitcoin ramped 1,400% higher in 2017. Ripple, which is now the second most valuable cryptocurrency, is up 14-fold in just 1 month and 300-fold in the past year. This is simply unprecedented in the size of the multiplier and its velocity, and with regard to the history of the financial markets ever. Let's talk about Maduro issuing his emitting, he's calling it his cryptocurrency. And I concluded by saying, if you are playing this game, you have to be constantly sifting the signal from the noise. You have to be prepared to pivot on a dime. And at this moment, you need to be studying the behavior of the millennial crowd. Blockchain saves the day for an iced tea company facing the boot from the NASDAQ. Makes the point that I was making. Who's having fun yet? Asks Miles Woodland. Quite a bloodbath yesterday in the crypto markets. Commodity markets, gold last trading at 13.18. We saw a good recovery. Look at this chart from around 12.41, and we came all the way back up to here. Goldman Sachs and Citibank are said to be in the lead for the top roles in the Saudi Aramco IPO, which will be the biggest IPO ever. WTI crude oil $62.20 trading last. My target for this is 65. My target for Brent is 70. And I see those targets being hit in relatively short order. Zinc hit another 10-year high, and basic commodity space has been very robust. Let's move on to Sub-Saharan Africa. Sudanese students stoned police on third day of bread price protests. Hundreds of Sudanese students on Monday threw rocks at riot police and were met with tear gas salvos on the third consecutive days of protests over a doubling in bread prices, witnesses said. They said police formed a cordon to force more than 300 marchers onto the campus of Khartoum University, the largest in Sudan, and continued to fire tear gas at students chanting "No, no, no" to price rises. A smaller number of protesters gathered in Kosti, Sudan's biggest Nile River port, 350 kilometers south of the capital, but were dispersed by baton-wielding police. I said, doubling bread prices is always a risky regime endeavor. Angola is said to plan currency sale Tuesday as it ends the peg. Angola's central bank will hold an auction on Tuesday to sell foreign currency to commercial banks. It's first since saying it will abandon the dollar peg, according to 3 people familiar with knowledge of the matter. The kwanza will probably be allowed to depreciate at the auction as the central bank shifts to a trading band, because about $100 million of foreign currency will be offered at the auction. Currency's exchange rate will be determined at the auctions, the central bank said in a statement on its website. There will be an exchange rate adjustment, with the kwanza losing about 15% of its value against the dollar. Once that adjustment happens, I expect the kwanza to trade between 190 to 210 per dollar in the foreseeable future. Redcat Man, who I follow avidly, says we think fair value for the kwanza is 348, based on a 22-year REER model, 267 on a 14-year REER model. Either way, a much bigger devaluation is needed, and I tend to agree with him. But I think this is the right move, so that's why I was bullish, and I'll come back to it in a second. And the Angolan leader's denying targeting his predecessor's family in shake-up. This isn't about chasing people, Lorenzo told reporters Monday. It's about fixing situations that prove to be harmful to the public interest. Since replacing Dos Santos, Lorenzo has removed his daughter Isabel as chairwoman of the state-owned oil company Sonangol, fired the central bank governor and the head of the diamond company Endiama. He's also terminated management contracts for state TV channels with 2 of Dos Santos' younger children. The string of dismissals has earned Lorenzo the nickname of the Relentless Remover. Corruption happens because there is impunity, he said. That's the reason why corruption is widespread at all levels, from the person who asks for a bribe on the street to those who hold prominent positions. In regard to the Foreign Sovereign Fund, I wouldn't say that I will dismiss the board, but it could happen. Lorenzo said there was no need to be impatient about the timing of Dos Santos' departure from the ruling party's presidency. It's up to him to say if he will fulfill that commitment. Angola's Eurobond, maturing in November 2025, is yielding 6.64% in dollars, and had a bit of a sell-off a couple of days ago because central bank governors spoke about possible restructuring. I think it's a buy on dips. I like what I'm seeing. I think political risk will continue to come down. And as I said on January the 2nd, I like what I see. I'm seeing in Angola. I'm keen on being long Angolan risk. The devil is in the detail of the execution, however, and I sort of had a premonition of a currency peg being let go. But I think the way to play this is to be long Angolan Eurobonds to get out of the currency risk entirely. Somalia calls for accelerated debt relief to fight terrorism. Somalia's Prime Minister has called on multilateral lenders to accelerate the debt forgiveness process so that the country can access funds to fight terrorism and its underlying causes. Somalia owes around $4 billion, most of it in interest and penalties on nearly 3-decade-old loans made to the former military government of Mohammed Said Barre, whose overthrow in 1991 plunged the country in the Horn of Africa into years of lawlessness and civil war. The head of the Atlantic Council's Africa Center in Washington, Peter Pham, who was once touted as the possible U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Africa, said, "Fighting terrorism needs good governance. It needs providing services for our people. To do that costs money, and that's why we need the support of the international community." This is the president. Peter Pham said multilateral institutions are right to be cautious before flooding Somalia with money. It's deja vu when the dilettantes in the international community get excited about the Somali government. Let's not flood the country beyond its capabilities to absorb. Accepted that the new government had made progress, but said he was not convinced that corruption had been brought under control. Huge amounts of aid and cash simply disappears, he said. Ghost soldiers drawing a salary without doing any fighting. Of the government's limited budget, he said, I've yet to figure out what they want to do with $250 million other than to travel to conferences and to pay parliamentarians whose absentee rate is atrocious. This is the skyline of Senegal's capital, Dakar, from the top of the African Renaissance statue. The cost of insuring South Africa's debt rose the most in almost a month from the lowest level since May 2013. That's the point. Rand hit resistance. Fibonacci retracement chart shows the currency is close to retracing 50% of the slump between 2011 and 2016. If it clears that line, the Rand may climb to as high as $10.89 per dollar. I think it will go as high as 10. South Africa all shares up 0.9% this year. Nigeria is among the world's 10 cheapest places to buy gasoline, which probably explains the current problem. Nigerian all shares up 4.2% this year already. That's a blistering start. Ghana Stock Exchange up 3.56% this year. Tanzania's inflation rate fell to 4% year-on-year in December, down from 4.4% in November. Seems to be related to the food price. A statement from the organizing committee, the People's Assembly. The swearing-in will be the biggest public event that Kenya has seen since independence. This is Mir Bakar. And he says you can either scoff at it or take it as a chilling warning. When you scoff at it. I expect, I said on the 20th of December, the Cabinet Secretary to seize the window of opportunity to issue a $2 billion Eurobond in order to underwrite and boost the now. That's here. Kenya's current long-dated bond, which matures in June 2024, yields 5.37%. Add on 50 basis points, 5.87 looks a pretty good rate for the government to borrow. Kenya's watchdog cancelled De La Rue banknote contract. Have a that. Nairobi All shares up 1.59% so far this year. Scan Group is set to enter the Nigerian market after the row that it had with its affiliate is sorted. Scan Group had a very poor year last year in terms of share price performance. The share price detail is there on Rich Wrap-Ups, the last item at the bottom of the page. Once again, thank you for stopping by.